my pleasure to welcome you here this morning. Thanks for finding your way to our not usual spot for last lectures. So glad that you're here as we look forward to hearing from Debbi Faase. I called you Debbi. Yeah, Debbi Faase, Director of Field Experience in our teacher education program. I've known the Faase family for quite a long time, and so it was kind of a joy, excuse me, to think this morning about Debbi and why it's exciting to hear from her this morning. In particular, I'd point out three things. It seems to me that Debbi Faase moves through the experiences of her life, both those welcomed and those unwelcomed, with definite grace. I've been aware that Debbi does the work of Communio by reaching out to colleagues both old and new to make them feel at home, often by literally welcoming them into her home. And Debbi, to kind of riff on a scriptural passage, welcomes wisdom. I think she sets a place for it and sees it and knows it when it arrives. And so for these reasons, because Debbi is a woman who stands in grace, who actively builds community, and who invites wisdom, we are pleased and lucky to turn our attention to her and her thoughts this morning. Welcome.
Well, I do hope all of you someday have the opportunity for Julie to introduce you. A last lecture. What an honor. A last lecture? No way. Those were my two reactions when I received the email from Julie. And I thought quite a bit about it, and I have three wonderful children who posed way too many questions on why I wouldn't do this. And so here I am before you today, not in heels like I usually wear, because Morgan thought maybe this microphone wouldn't reach my height, so I'm flats. I would be lying if I told you that I had not thought about what I would say, given the opportunity to do a last lecture. The 5 people who went before me set the bar really high and made me think. Where would I start a last lecture? At what point is so important in my life that I want to begin? And what point is so important in my life that I want to end a last lecture? How do I want to be remembered? Well, I can tell you on some days I have thought it might be fun to have my last lecture, to walk into the classroom with curlers in my hair and a bathrobe on and a cigarette in my mouth and say to the group, "Peace out, ladies and gents. This teacher is going to fly." And with a snap of my hand, I would disappear. Well, I don't use curlers, and I don't smoke, and I have no idea how I could magically disappear just for effect. But it's always been a great thought. It's been a great vision in my head. In my best efforts today, I hope that this last lecture carries the joy of Bathrobe Debbi, coupled with the gravity of the serious questions a last lecture should entertain. To begin, I have taught at this college for 28 years. I want to say, more than some of you have been alive. I have spent over 5,000 hours in the classroom, teaching lesson upon lesson, all of which lasted longer than 25 minutes. In fact, some of those lectures, I laughed when I left going, "Wow, you really nailed that one today, Debbi." And just as I'm ready to give myself that solo air high five, I remember that it's not over. And I will continue and come back tomorrow and do my job again and again and again. You see, I continue to have the opportunity to help weave the patterns of the lives of my students. I hope that within my 28 years here, I have developed some kind of degree of wisdom that will benefit the students I work with. That interaction that affects the lives of students is the best part of my job. Now, I have great respect for other professions. After After all, if we didn't have a dentist, we wouldn't be smiling as pretty as we are today. And if we didn't have the clerk at the grocery store, we might not be as full as we are sitting here right now. And if we didn't have police officers, well, we might not be so bad, would we? However, I want you to know that my father was a policeman in the city of Milwaukee. And so I have a great respect for that profession also. Point being, while every profession has an impact on our daily lives, I'm enamored by the idea that the profession I have allows me to open doors for students, giving them opportunities they can't even begin to dream about. This lasting effect causes this job to be more like life for me than work. It is my hope that when I am finished here today, as with all of my lessons, there is just one piece of information, one tidbit that you will all take with you that will help change you just a little bit. I believe that my 28 years here and my role as an educator opening doors both contribute to the fact that I was asked to give a last lecture. However, the theme of this lecture does not really come from my extended tenure here at St. Norbert or my professional role, but instead it comes from the simple fact that I am happy. Although there have been lectures of mine, as my students may admit, that have gone anywhere from complex to borderline incoherent. This one will be very simple. Randy Posh, who delivered the last lecture, did so out of a desire to pass on wisdom to his students as well as to his children. In searching for wisdom that I might pass down, I came across the idea of my own happiness, and I wanted to communicate it to you in a way that I could quantify it, in a way that you would understand. In doing so, I discovered that in a large part, my own happiness comes directly from the idea of gratitude. And so if I have a positive effect today, I aim to derive it from the proposal that if you live your life in gratitude, happiness will follow you. If you live your life in gratitude, happiness will follow you. At first I was hoping I could end it right there. Then I read this through and realized I didn't make the time mark Julie gave me. So I read it again, much slower. Many more pauses. Still didn't make my time mark. So you will all have to bear with me in the hope that my elaboration of this thesis is as profound as the discovery of it. In speaking of happiness coming out of gratitude, it would be easy to be grateful for only those things that make me happy. But I have found that a more prolonged, life-filling happiness comes out of being grateful, even for the moments of pain and sorrow. Out of the many things that my husband taught me, one of his last lessons was that life is too short. And we really don't know what our last words, our last thoughts, our last actions will be. I have a gratefulness for this lesson, even though it has come out of great sorrow. So at the risk of sounding more cliche than a country music star's acceptance speech, I'm going to tell you not only to live each day as if it were your last, but to live each moment as if it was that way. Now think for a moment, if it was your last moment on this earth, would you hold the door for someone as they try to get in from the cold? Would you let someone in your lane of traffic? Would you thank God for the food that is before you? If it were your last moment, would you let those important to you know how amazing they truly are? Would you share stories and special times with others? Would you laugh so hard your belly hurt? I think those are pretty nice moments. Living as if you were in your last moment is in gratitude that you have a last moment to do something good. Good for yourself and good for others. While I think frequently of being grateful for individual moments, sometimes it takes more than just wanting to be grateful. In working through my own trials of gratitude, I can identify 5 strategies that help to increase the chances of gratitude in my daily life. First and foremost, develop your relationship with God. By developing your relationship with God, you will become better at savoring life's joys. As simple and as obvious as that sounds, it is so important to hold on to those moments. Spend joyful moments with love in your heart and moments of tragedy with faith in your soul. Seek out your joyful moments and find that your heart is filled with so much love that you sometimes can't even breathe. Moments of tragedy will come, and at these times it is most difficult yet most important that you keep faith in your soul. You are never alone. God is always there. God is good. He is our friend. She is our Lord. I have worked to spend my life talking to Him, thanking her, hoping with her, just as I talk, thank, and hope with a friend. But I've also been able to survive the toughest of times, knowing that there is a supreme being watching over me and watching over my sins, and indeed might be sad himself. In talking with God, I am humbled in gratitude, and I further realize all the good things I still have. Now, this optimism doesn't always come easy, nor did my relationship with God. I try to work each day at strengthening those things. Personally, I hate it when people look at me and say, "Debbie, you have to be more optimistic." Little do they know that I woke up this morning to a broken hairdryer, a stubbed toe, and the leftovers I've been dreaming about all night, one of my daughters took for lunch the next day. And so I say to myself, really? You want me to be optimistic? It is in times like these that I say to my friend, God, what is it going to take to turn this day around? Help me to find the strength to go into work with frizzy hair, to wear Crocs with nylons, and to give my daughter a swift kick in the butt as she walks in the house. And then I say, well, at least 2 out of the 3. But after I say these things literally out loud to myself, I am grateful for the sense of humor I have, because I can laugh at myself. And once I laugh my way through it, it's not so bad. I live in gratitude for those moments. At times when it is too difficult to laugh, I sometimes need something more, which brings me to my second point. Develop strategies to cope. Stuff happens. And how we react, how we respond, not only forms our character, but also adds to or detracts from who we are and from the happiness we can experience. There are healthy ways to cope, and then there are strategies that are destructive. Every time we act, know that we validate who we are. Finding a healthy coping method not only reaffirms our character, but will strengthen our soul and bring us back to happiness. In the past 2 years, I had the unfortunate, prolonged experience of times when it was hard to feel grateful. And that friend of mine up there in the big house doesn't feel as close as he once had. It is at times like this that gratitude is most important. After Tom died, there were mornings that felt like getting out of bed was as impossible as flying to the moon that day. Do you know what got me out of bed? The faces of my 3 children. My husband helped me bring into this world. The gratefulness for those faces is my coping mechanism. If those faces aren't something to be grateful for, I don't know what is. For me, coping means I cry when I want to cry, and I find the strength to be strong when I need to be strong. I'm able to do so by embracing the gifts I still have around me. Gratitude for my children and my wonderful memories is currently my coping mechanism. While coping mechanisms will differ drastically for all of us that are sitting in this room, I find holding on to gratitude is one of the things that may aid us in moving on. There is, however, one coping strategy that can be destructive, and that is the ability to compare. My third point, avoid comparisons. Comparisons, more often than not, detract from our ability to be wholeheartedly grateful. This is also clearly not an easy tactic, and I certainly see that at times I have failed, even with my own children. A good example, my youngest daughter, who's sitting right here, asks me at least once a week if she is my favorite child. Still now. When I laugh and tell her that I promise I do not have a favorite child, she generally huffs and under her breath says, "Whatever. We all know Noah is your favorite, but at least I for sure was Dad's favorite. He even told me so." And right now we can't argue with that, can we? I also find myself having to wrap my kids' Christmas presents so that they all get the same amount of boxes to open. While these examples are meant more for effect than anything else, I want you to see how easy it is to compare. Comparing yourself to someone else can be poisonous. If we think somehow we are better than somebody else, we give ourselves an unhealthy sense of superiority. If we think we are less than the person we are comparing ourselves to, we usually discredit all the hard work we've done and all the progress that we have made. Although my children have their moments, they have grown up learning to be grateful for the lives that we live and the people we share them with. I believe this comes from an understanding and an acceptance that there will always be people with more money, higher grades, more friends, better hair, and more often cut, or more frequently cut grass. But that's irrelevant, isn't it? The question is, are you happy? If the answer to that is no, then you have to do something about it. And if the answer to that is yes, then why are we concerned with anything else other than being grateful for the blessings that we have been given in our life? In those moments, we must learn to be grateful. My fourth point, and one that seems both blindingly obvious and notoriously difficult, a deeper delve into optimism. Something that helps me to live in gratitude is to live with an optimistic view of the world, to find not only the good in situations, but the good in people. You all have the ability to manufacture optimism. The world is how you see the world and the place that it is full of endless opportunities, especially in trying times. Tom always wanted us to laugh more than we smiled, to have more discussions than to be in silence, and to remember that the world is full of goodness, and that we have the power to add to that every single day. Those are very optimistic views. I have a few Faase humorous views also about optimism. At one time, my daughter Chelsea was a young girl, and I was in a hurry to leave the house, and she wasn't finishing her food. So like all moms, we say, finish your food, because there are children somewhere else starving, don't we? So I said that to Chelsea. Finish your peas, because do you know there are children who are hungry in this world? And Chelsea so gently looked at me, went, got a container, put her peas in that container, and with tears in her eyes said, "Please, Mom, send these to only genuinely want to better the world, she was optimistic that her sweet care for the children in this world would get her out of eating the peas. Now Morgan, on the other hand, Morgan was my child who took optimism to a whole new level. No matter the task at hand, Morgan found a way to spin it optimistically. What child likes to give things up for Lent? Morgan. Morgan gave up piano lessons, surfing, and we don't even live near an ocean, doing homework on Thursday nights, and sitting in the back seat for Lent. Whichever way you find it best to be optimistic, I promise it will make you a happier person and a more grateful person. Personally, I enjoy expressing a positive outlook on life by doing random acts of kindness. Sometimes this means helping a senior citizen carry their groceries to the car. And sometimes it means sending a note to someone to tell them that I admire them and that they are incredible in what they stand for. One way or another, I believe these random acts of kindness are twofold. I have never felt better when I have tried to make somebody's day, and I feel it is infectious. Though I find it very easy to feel optimistic about life when I am performing random acts of kindness, there are certainly also times when I find it more difficult to find the good in something. These are times when an awful word that we all dread comes into my life. Failure. What is good about failure? You put so much time and effort, prayer and thoughts, and wishes into something, and then it doesn't turn out the way you want it to turn out. At times like this, I suggest that you expect the unexpected. Listen to the people around you. Listen to the call of others. Well, I pulled enough cliche one-liners for today, so I will reword the phrase, when one door opens, another closes. And I will tell you that failure does not necessarily coincide with the end. What I am asking you to try to keep into perspective is that there are times when one thing must end for a new beginning to start. We must live in gratitude for those moments. And my final point, point number 5. Chase your fears. In my lifetime, there have been many things I was afraid to do. Whether it be to apply for principal's position in Milwaukee where all of the staff would be men, or even to give natural childbirth, and also to give this last lecture. When I learned after moving forward with those decisions is that when we go after things we fear, the possibilities are endless. Take, for example, the principal position in Milwaukee. Before I began my first day of work, I had no idea that the years ahead of me would be filled with people who pushed me, challenged me, questioned me, and loved me. Those men that I worked with helped mold me into a strong, confident woman. Believe it or not, although I speak in front of students on a daily basis, public speaking when it involves my personal life is not always easy. In fact, it is something I dread. I would much stronger prefer listening to somebody else tell me about their private thoughts and feelings while I sit back, take it in, and learn from their wisdom. When I tried to come up with every reason in the book why I wanted to turn this opportunity down, my kids said to me, "Why would you do that? Why would you pass up this incredible opportunity? And if you do, if you turn this down, it better not be for the reason of, I'm scared, or I don't want to do this." Having the chance to prepare for this lecture brought me back to what I value most in this world. It reminded me what makes me the happiest, and it opened my heart to the gratefulness I feel to God some advice as to how to conquer your fears, I would tell you not to run from them, but to run to them. Run to the opportunities that scare you the most, and you will be surprised at how much you will learn and how much you will change because of it. So have I thought about giving a last lecture? Sure I have. Have I thought about what point is so important that my last lecture should begin? And what point is so important that I will end? How do I want to be remembered? Although it might be more fun to be remembered as someone who walked into their classroom on a final day with curlers in their hair and a bathrobe on, it wouldn't be true to who I am. It would be much truer to my character to be remembered as someone who might stub their toe or wear unmatching shoes to school and to laugh at themselves. I can only hope that I'm remembered as someone who was able to weave the fabric of the path of lives of my students through optimism. As someone who lived to make the world a better place, and that God is good, and that the world is full of love and unending opportunities. I will not end with a closing takeaway, but rather with a challenge for all of you. I challenge you to frequent the moments that takes your breath away. Remember those stories, relish the times, and most importantly, pass them on to future generations. I challenge you to live a life full of moments that you are beyond grateful for. And most importantly, I challenge you to become the men and women that others are grateful for. For remember that life is too short to waste moments on anything else. Thank you.
As those of you who have been at last lectures before know, we always like to end by celebrating with an opportunity to enjoy one another's company. There's hospitality in the gathering space, and should your schedule allow, we invite you to linger and take a moment to be grateful to Debbi for sharing her wisdom, and to be grateful for the presence of each of us in this room. Once again, would you join me in thanking Debbi Faase?